You talked of constructing structure.
Yes.
You have seen this.
Mm.
And then if you are to see like in some other places, you see people tying goats outside.
Mm.
So like, what's the difference between goats that are kept like this, that are somewhere to sleep in, or somewhere to take shelter when it's raining, and all that? And then the difference between goats that are always tied outside, they sleep in the cold, they're always eat by rain. You find that some goats also sleep in the bush.
Yes.
Especially when people are like in this farming season where you have a lot of work to do in the
Yes,
farm.
that's very true.
So
That's very true.
goats might end up sleeping in the bush. What's the difference between this kind of goats and the goats that are kept like this?
Okay. First and foremost, for those that are doing tethering, that we call that tethering, whereby you put a rope on the neck or on the foot, and then you tie. Those are small scale farmers, meaning he's able to tie 6, 7, 10 goats and be able to, tie them, graze them. Sometimes it's because the person is not having the capacity, or it does not feel the need to employ somebody to go into full-time herding of the animals. He feels he can use that money to save and maybe venture by buying the ropes. He knows it will take maybe 6 months before the rope is spoiled. And so if he's going to incur, say, 3,000 per rope, or 5,000 times maybe 10, it comes to 50,000. He prefers that because 6 months. But for a hard person, the minimum, you hear people talking of 100,000, that's the basic minimum. But you find it has to be around 200, 150, 200,000 average for a hard person. So you remember, the person is also struggling going to the gardener, just like you said, and is living from hand to mouth. He may not be at the level of having a structure and goats in numbers and be able to to look after them using a hard person. So those cases, you'll find that those goats are normally tied around the veranda of the house. So when it rains, it normally hits them. You find they are very cold. You generally find that they have their own challenges. So for the fact that such farmers, normally they are venturing into local goats, which are hardy, as I told you. So much as they are on the veranda, they are not going to suffer so much. If you are a different breed, you would not do that mistake if they are these crosses or boas or savannas or Kalaharis. They'll just die on him. Secondly, you've noticed that such farmers don't even do vaccination. They don't even do deworming. So you'll find those goats, when they are generally emaciated, not as good. There are those who do it, and you find that they are determined, and they do the deworming. You find there's 5, 6, 10 goats on the veranda, quality goats. Those one no, and maybe they are just either lacking space. By the way, some of them is because of space, and he knows that he just has like maybe 2 acres around the home for tethering and keep on rotating them. And he knows that the neighbors have crops, gardens, and he doesn't want that kind of headache. And even if you have a hard person, it's very hard to leave the goats freely on 2 acres and you are one person controlling 4 corners and there are different gardens. You can realize that that's going to be a challenge. But for this one, for this approach where they build a structure, have an exercising yard like you see it, is for people who are aiming to go for commercial farming. People are aiming to do numbers, and that's what sets the two apart.
Okay.
Yes, please.
And like when you're to see, goats are these kind of animals that they don't fall sick frequently like pigs.
Yes.
So what are some of the diseases that always disturb them?
Wow. In terms of the diseases, there are quite a number of diseases that affect goats. First of all, there are 2 types of diseases. There are those diseases that are vaccinatable. That's why if you are a serious goat farmer, we encourage you to do goat vaccination. Do it periodically. You must budget and plan for it on an annual basis. Now, with vaccination, we have a number of diseases. We have, for instance, CCPP. I'll give you the abbreviation. Some of them are having long botanical names and so forth. We have CCPP. We have PPR. Sometimes mixed with the goat pox as a vaccination. We have Brucella militensis, we have Clostridios, we have ORF, we have foot and mouth disease. All those are diseases that affect these animals, and so you are supposed to plan for vaccination. Here we've been able to vaccinate these animals. As you see them, they're all vaccinated, apart from the babies that are yet to get that vaccination. We intend to give them Clostridios, I think, next month, as we plan for that. So you'll find that goats will always experience that. Then we also have ORF. By the way, ORF is another disease that can be vaccinated against, that affects goats. You find when the goats develop sores on the mouth, sores inside the mouth, it cannot feed properly, it cannot breastfeed. Goats, you find they are dying in great numbers because of that. Now, those diseases I've talked about, they are airborne. They will come and attack your animals, and you can wake up one day and find the whole herd dead. Some are as deadly. I've seen even some clips on WhatsApp groups talking of, say, places like Pakwach, which have experienced such cases. Now, apart from that, there are other diseases. For instance, you have to make sure that there are those you find they develop lumps around their necks or what, which cysts, which normally give out a lot of pus. It's a very common occurrence, and also that one, it has its own way of how it should be managed and controlled. They find goats developing wounds in between their hooves, especially if you have the practice of releasing goats to go to graze very early in the morning when the dew is still there. That one is another problem. We have things like heart water. Heart water is a disease that is caused by ticks. When ticks affect these goats, especially the hybrid goats, you find they develop a disease that's called heart water, and they have their own characteristics when it is sick, how it behaves. And that's why when it dies and you slaughter the goat, you find it's full of water in the lungs, in the heart area there, and then you get to know it's caused by that. So you are also supposed to provide timely and regular deworming. That one also causes goats. You find the goat is there, it's having a big tummy, it's developing, then we have flu, we have cough. There's quite a lot that you can do. Those that are vaccinatable and that you can vaccinate against, and those that you cannot be able to vaccinate against. You should be able to learn those. But it's something that you learn on a daily basis. And when you have a vet, a district vet or a vet that is visiting your farm, is able to provide that kind of information. But when I talk like that, it can scare people and say, but there is too much disease, are we going to manage? Yes, it is there, just like human beings. We have malaria, typhoid, anemia, and so forth. But how long do you suffer from typhoid, depending on how you look after yourself, or malaria and so forth? So it's not to scare you, but to alert you that these things are there and they are facts. But local goats are less susceptible. But when it comes to vaccination, there is nothing like local goat or hybrid. Vaccination is vaccination. It has to be handled. Even when it comes to deworming, the same goats that is eating from the dirty area, it will also experience the same challenge. So you see, all that comes in. Yes.
Okay, how many times do you vaccinate and deworm your goats in a year?
Okay, that's very important. We advise that at least you vaccinate your animals once in a year.
Yeah.
Yes. It can only change if you are the type of person that is dealing in goats and keep on buying goats from outside and you're introducing them. If you're doing that, we encourage that instead, do what? Instead, vaccinate maybe twice in a year, because you're introducing animals coming in, you don't know where they're coming from, and you're likely to cause havoc. And remember, these are animals that you are buying quite expensively, and you've invested a lot in them. So that one we encourage, but under normal circumstances you can vaccinate once in a year, apart from those diseases that you may want to vaccinate once in a lifetime. For instance, like Brucella militensis, normally that one they vaccinate once in a lifetime of an animal, and then you keep on making sure that the animal is healthy. But in terms of deworming, for instance, that one will depend. For instance, if it is you have a grazing area where you have lots of shrubs, that means goats are eating, the grass is told they're eating from top and climbing, meaning there are less chances of having a lot of germs coming into contact with the ground. Because they are eating from the leaves of the branches and so forth. If you are in such a having a grazing area which is like that, we encourage you to vaccinate at least once every after 3 months. But if you are where you've had cases during the dry season, there's been bush burning, the grass is just coming up, goats are really feeding from down, picking the soft grass. That means when it rains, of course, you know that the soil hits on the leaves so much, chances of germs being on those leaves is too high. So that when you do at least every after 2 months, you vaccinate. So it will depend on how you your environment looks like. If you're into zero grazing, that means you're just introducing food to the animals that are not moving out and they are eating indoors, and it's well, well taken care of in terms of hygiene. There you find yourself also vaccinating maybe after 3 months, because the chances of disease prevalence is not as high. Yes, please.
Okay. That's a lot. So, like you have said, like there are so many diseases that can affect these goats. Are there some that you can control it?
The diseases?
Yeah.
Yes. Like I said, if you vaccinate those diseases like CCPP, PPR, Brucella melitensis, ORF, and so forth, those ones, once you do, you'll find that you're not going to get chances. Even when there's an outbreak, it could come and affect your herd, but it will be at levels where you can be able to detect and control. It will not come and sweep them. Okay. Things like cough, things like flu, those ones we have particular diseases. Remember I told you you're supposed to have a medical kit, medicines kit, where you have these various medications that has been advised by the vet that you should have. Now those ones, when they're there, you're able to give them. You'll find if a goat is having a lot of flu, or there's some cough, sometimes it could be because of the worms, you can be able to give them. But you'll find sometimes they have cysts, and they have some of those boils that you have to cut and then press out the parts and treat it and so forth. You have a spray that you can be able to adjust. You have goats that are having wounds on in between the hooves. When you squeeze and apply a spray. So those ones are some of the diseases that are there, but really manageable, especially if you notice early. It is important that when you're having this enterprise, you engage herdsmen that are passionate. First of all, you, the person, you should be very, very passionate. That is your investment. If you know that you're putting a lot of money and it pains to find and look for this money, you are going to make sure that you're doing the right precautions, to make sure that your animals are safe. Then make sure that the herds person you're having is very passionate, is able to wake up first thing in the morning, is going to come, as even he's brushing his teeth, is able to look at the animals, how are they, you see, and be able to detect and be able to tell you, move along the goat kids and see what's happening, look at the adults, and then be able to see what to do and be able to alert you. At night when he hears strange noises or something, he's able to wake up and go with a torch and see what's happening, you see. So it's important. Those will help you a great deal. Apart from just picking somebody, if he's a relative and you put him there, you're going to find yourself in trouble. And these are some things we are supposed to be guarding against.
Okay. And then lastly, do you also spray them for ticks? Yes,
actually that's another thing you should be able to take very seriously. Spraying is supposed to be done every week. You're supposed to spray your animals every week and make sure that, and when you're spraying, you have to spray in such a way that the whole goat is supposed to be wet, right from the ears, the head, the back, underneath, and the hooves, you see. And as you see, this is the exercising yard, this is the withholding area, and now this is the withholding area. This is actually where we put the animals when we're spraying, and we will make sure we close there and be able. For the young ones, we make sure that we show them inside their house and be able to spray. By spraying the young ones from inside, the excess spray that is falling down on the grasses and so forth is able to kill any other parasite or ants that could be, fleas or ticks that could be in the grass, and be able to kill it. And that's how we do it. But spraying is supposed to be weekly and is very key. Actually, if you're growing these herds and you're going into the hybrids and you don't spray, you're wasting your time. You lose literally all your herds to ticks. Ticks is a very great, one of the greatest enemies of these hybrid goats.
All right, that's quite interesting. Okay, guys, we have been with Mr. Arthur. We have been like, as you say, we have been sharing a lot about God. Sharing that is quite something interesting and something you can invest your money in because
Yes.
it's not all that tiresome, though you have to be passionate about something when you want to do it. So
Yes.
thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the information shared. See you again in the next video.
Thank you so much.